welcome to our Luminary Masterclass today. My name is Dewi Maile Lim, and I'm so happy to tune in with you. I've opened this particular transmission up to my entire community, which is normally, this masterclass is normally reserved for the women in my Sovereign Creatrix membership club, and I am so delighted. I felt inspired very last minute to weave everyone that I know into this conversation today with my dear friend and sister Christabel Zamore. Welcome, Christabel. So happy that you're here with me today.
So honored to be here. Thank you.
Yay, I'm so excited. So I am titling this transmission Bliss and Birthing the Oracle Within. Bliss and Birthing the Oracle Within. And we're going to go into what that means and why that's important, and why now is the absolute critical time for those of us who feel inspired to share more of our gifts and sacred Dharma with the world, to come into the fullness of that now, here and now. Christabel is a master guide, supporting thousands of people, tens of thousands of people, maybe even into the millions, now, Christabel, of people worldwide to really come into their sovereign divinity. And that's what these conversations are all about. Sovereign Creatrix is a container for the sister who is ready to really return to herself as the source of her own experience, and to also, from this place of inner empowerment, go into the world and serve using her gifts. And so I'm just so excited to be here with you. Welcome to everyone who's tuning in live, as well as those on the replay. So I'm going to definitely weave in an opportunity towards the end. If you have any questions, just drop them into the chat, and I will do my best to bring them in the appropriate time. And for now, we're just going to get started, and I'll introduce Miss Christabel here. So Christabel is an oracle, a divine channel, and she's the founder of Breath of Bliss Academy. She's also a spiritual signature program design coach, which we'll go into in a little bit about what that is. And in Breath of Bliss Academy, Christabel helps divine feminine leaders explore air as plant medicine, and to access multidimensional expanded states of consciousness for the full realization of their sovereign divinity. She trains professional Breath of Bliss ceremonialists as somatic oracles and has facilitators opening hearts all over the world. She's trained over 1,000 teachers in her own facilitator training programs, and has a mass published book, a collection of psychedelic audio downloads, 5 instructional DVDs, and has been featured in Time, O Magazine, Dr. Oz, Live with Regis and Kelly, and many more. She also mentors luminaries to grow their impact and income by mentoring them in how to combine their soul gifts with their own signature program. Wow, sister, I feel so honored. Like, deep bow to you and all of your amazing embodied expression in the world up until this now moment. You're just such a gift to the world. Thank you for being here.
Such an honor to be here. As I said, I adore you. I love the time we spend together on the Big Island. All our good talks about this very subject.
Yes, thank you. Oh my gosh, yeah. I couldn't think of a better person to weave in for this topic.
Yeah.
So I would love to start here. How do you define sovereignty, and how does this theme show up for you in your world and in your Dharma?
Well, sovereignty for me starts with the sacred pause and taking a deep breath in every situation to create coherence in my nervous system so I can be in a state of alignment and congruence with the truth of myself as an extension of source. And so I notice when I start moving faster, like this morning, I left you this voicemail because I spilled tea all over the rug right before we started recording. I lost that breath, and I didn't have the breath and the alignment. And for me, life is a constant opportunity to remember the sovereignty I can create in myself and resource for other people by remembering the pause, coming back into alignment, breathing deep. And the freedom that arises for me when I take 100% responsibility to regulate my nervous system and to access those expanded states of God consciousness, that freedom is everything. That's the source of all true power and all true medicine that I can offer to anybody. And that freedom, that sovereignty, the freedom codes also have been coming to me recently very strongly in remembering to unconditionally love everyone and everything. That's like all people and all situations on the planet unconditionally, without harboring a wish that something would change, or a resentment that something is in another way, or, all of those things give away freedom for me when I am fighting reality and I am pushing against the natural flow of what is unfolding, that is it's not meant for me to control. It's actually meant for me to just love. So that's a little bit about how I view sovereignty.
Oh, wow. It's like a transmission when you speak for me.
Mm,
I really appreciate the way that you embody what you're saying as you say it. That's my experience of you,
mm,
that there's this reverence in every moment. And when there's not that reverence, the forgetfulness of like, oh, something happened that I wasn't planning, like the tea spilling, and I need to attend to this now in this now moment, and just even allowing that to be another remembrance. There can be a remembrance in every moment and a returning to what you're speaking to. That's really powerful.
takes a lot of in the moment forgiveness, because for me, I forget constantly. I haven't arrived at some level. I'm constantly forgetting and remembering again. And I think that's also a piece of sovereignty for me, is to love the part of me that forgets, and to give myself the freedom to always be learning and growing at my own pace, and giving others that permission too. And I think they can feel when you give them total freedom to be who they are. When you aren't trying to fix, change, or save someone, and you're holding a field for their unconditional wholeness and goodness and purity. And that is your whole job, is simply to hold that field, a prayer field for them, in their presence, by breathing and being in your body and opening your senses. People blossom and their hearts open and they relax into who they are. And so I think each of us can be these ambassadors of sovereignty simply by being in our bodies as oracles in our breath and our senses.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. You said it right there in terms of the role that each of us is offered in an opportunity in this life to come into center for ourselves moment to moment. It's not like I'm here, I've arrived, and then it's like the next now moment comes into play, and there's the tea that's spilled and whatever else, this person in front of us who we have an opportunity to witness, forgive, be present with. And that is really the opportunity that a person who feels inspired to sovereignty, and the idea that is offered, if they're not in a cave sitting there like a monk, oming for the rest of their life, then you're going to be interfacing with other people. And there is, in my perspective, an awakening happening on the planet. And I know you have lots to share about Ascension and just this now moment in all of human history. And I would love to get your perspective on that in a moment. And what I wanted to say is, as we awaken to our own oracle within, there is the opportunity to also be that embodied presence in the world with others. And so I would love to hear, I guess where we could go with this is just a little bit about your story and background. How did you find that you have an oracle within, first of all? And tell us a little bit about your story, like what led you into really having this sense of presence and way of being with yourself and others.
Mm, Many questions. I think I'll start with the first question and then continue. So the first question was, how did I find an oracle within? And I want to demystify this fancy luminary word of oracle. For me, an oracle simply means becoming a receptive vessel and attuning the symbiont host body of my soul to heightened levels of perception. So, at a fundamental level, my experience is that was amplified by working with toad medicine, actually, is that this body is an organic sheath that's housing a luminous being of light as part of, of course, a whole oversoul extension from source and, past, simultaneous, future, parallel lifetimes all happening in the now. My immortal being of light within having access to all these nows now. And this body, the flesh, vehicle, blood, muscle, bone, brain, amygdala, all these emotions, the things that the whole vehicle needs a lot of training. Because the natural instinct of my body is to completely forget that there is something much bigger inside of me. My body wants to invest in protection, because my brain is wired, as all of our brains are trained, to perceive threats and protect ourselves from threats. That's historically how we have evolved as a species. And so it takes a lot of discipline for me to purge those outdated programs. And then, of course, to address, the wounding, the beliefs acquired over time. And that's why I love breathwork. And we'll get to that later. It really helps clean up the vessel. But anyway, so there is a way to heighten perception. And that's what I mean by oracle. As an oracle, I mean the body is purified at a certain level. So I do a lot of purification practices. I work out a lot. I swim in the ocean a lot. The salt is important. I take a lot of saltwater baths, do, coffee enemas. I do saunas. I do every conceivable thing that could potentially elevate the frequency of the vehicle that I'm in. And then, practices that open these extra senses. So I do a lot of meditation and I listen. I often have a lot of theta music playing in the background all day, every day, or, Christabel music, things that are expanding my auric field. And simply by saying an oracle, it just means becoming empty for me. When I am facilitating a ceremony, I am slowing down my mind and I'm creating more space between my thoughts by tuning into taste, touch, smell, tactile sensation, and feeling in my body what is in the collective nervous system of the group. And so all of this has the effect that there's space between the thoughts, because my attention is focused on the consciousness that's in my senses instead of believing the thoughts are true. And from this place, as I'm breathing, the divine downloads come in of exactly what is wanting to be said while guiding a ceremony. I can feel it in my body because I'm tuned into the somatic field of everyone in the space and the unspoken feelings and emotions. And at the same time, because I'm breathing and expanding my awareness beyond its natural urge to contract and get closed and to weave stories, I'm actually opening to a feeling of vastness and goodness and beauty and love and the generative force of the universe that is actually moving through everyone and everything. So from that place, yeah, you could call it being an oracle. You could call it simply being a conduit, an empty, a hollow bone. But it's doesn't need a fancy word. I think it's just I am present. Yeah, it's I am presence.
Beautiful. Yeah. Just allowing myself to experience that through the words again, and we give our titles and we give our ascension words, and we use these the words to describe ourselves, really. And ultimately there is this I am presence that is simply to be experienced and to be tapped into. And so I love the way you described that. I've never heard it described in that way. I love the way that you are very attuned to the whole kind of experience of presence. And yes, when we're there, we are in an oracular state, especially as guides, facilitators, people who feel it. Everyone pretty much in my audience who comes to the Sovereign Creatrix group are inspired to be guides and way showers. And I feel like that's a natural progression that happens when we do discover the power that we have to shift not only our own inner experience, but that does ripple out into those in our field. And you mentioned being attuned to that in a facilitation space. You are a master facilitator. What led you down this path to doing group work and facilitating? And I'm assuming like the presence piece has been a big part of that. So yeah, how'd you come into being a guide?
Wow, I've been guiding experiences for a couple decades now, probably 3. And it began for me, well, all the way back when I was facilitating women's circles and I was doing drum circles and facilitating things that would bring people together in community and create connection. Because there was a time in my life I felt really alone and I thought I could build what I craved. So that's how I originally started gathering people together, and just around food and sacred time and art. And that evolved over the years into training as a coach and starting to hold more transformative women's groups and retreats. I was facilitating mermaid retreats on Kauai for many years. And, there's an alchemy that happens when you gather people in a group that is so different than one-on-one work. The awakening and realizations in each person are like a popping kernel of popcorn that can set all the other people up and out and off in themselves to a new understanding. So it becomes a very activating, ripe, beautiful thing to witness. So many people helping each other by simply being who they are, because we each hold the medicine, we hold the keys. And when one of us shares the truth, honestly, from the heart about what is shifting for us, it gives permission to other people to feel normal in what's going on for them too. And then also inspired beyond their own limitations to grow in new ways. So I'm really passionate about groups. And it started accelerating when I discovered hoop dancing, because I had a company for 12 years called Hoop Girl, where I trained like 1,000 teachers in my own modality and how to lead workshops for their students. And I really love geeking out on how to create group coherence. How do you take a group of strangers and bring them together and create safety for them to relax and to feel like they each belong and to feel seen and heard and supported and held? And of course, all of this emerged from my own original need for those things before, when I was starting women's circles. So you can see, for all your ladies watching, it starts with your own journey and healing those parts that are needing tender witnessing and care, and creating creating the attention you most need to heal. And then it's like we can then bring that and recreate it for other people. And so I was doing that particularly with ecstatic dance, because it was so activating to my body with the hoop dancing. And that was such a crucial part of awakening me as an oracle, because it was such a physically stimulating practice to have to navigate all over my whole body this hoop that was, asking for all kinds of acrobatic movement and extreme dance to, and I was performing all over the world. I was on stages in front of 5,000 people. I mean, I was with Cirque du Soleil parties and like castles and yachts. And, I was in all these extreme situations where many people would be watching me. And there was a very heightened sense of communion between my heart and theirs in those performative spaces, where I would actually see myself sending light, Christed divine feminine light, from my heart to theirs. And so all of that sort of performative experience came into facilitating workshops only in the sense of there was always the light work, right? For me, at the center of my heart, connecting to others' hearts, and the awareness that when others give us attention, that in and of itself activates presence, right, within us as a facilitator. And there's a way to breathe into that and to move that energy that gives it back to everybody in a group. And so that was really my formative years. And then Breath of Bliss, which began 8 years ago, that group work was birthed from my own life-changing revelations doing breathwork practices. I literally felt the love of God the first time I did a breath journey. I felt this unconditional love that was so far beyond anything I had ever given myself or experienced from another being. I mean, not even with ecstasy, drugs, all that stuff. Like I felt this level of benevolent, warm care and just angelic holding, and just the full embrace and infinity and the infinite complexity of realities all happening simultaneously, and witnessing myself on other planets, and like so many things all happening at once for me, that I just wanted to share it because it just was changing my life. And so I think it's so easy for any of your ladies watching, like, gosh, what do I do? What am I called to do next? For me, it's always come from what has rocked my reality in the greatest way. And from there, now the work is much more delicate and sensitive, because being a ceremonial facilitator requires a lot more awareness about somatics and, trauma release, and how to mend, how to create repairs for people, and allow them to repair themselves and witness their wounding, and to be more fully with themselves in unconditionally accepting ways, no matter what arises. Because breath work, can have cathartic release and tears and things that some people might find disorienting or not used to doing around other people. So this kind of facilitation, as you can imagine, is much different than hoop dancing workshops. And I love this work because all that it asks of me is complete presence. My job is to be a conduit of God, Goddess, creator of all that is. My job is to be constantly anchoring prayers, speaking decrees, affirming the safety, the goodness, the wholeness of everybody, inviting them to open their hearts, guiding them multidimensionally with, really fun, shamanic, angelic soundscapes. And it just lights me up and I love it.
So much goodness in what you're sharing. And I love the way you wove your trajectory into this now moment. There's a couple different things that I would love to touch on with what you just shared. So I'm going to bookmark it within myself and trust that one of them will return. First one, though, I wanted to share is, okay, let's go here first. This piece about safety feels alive in me to talk with you about. Creating safety in oneself first is where it all begins, I believe. And how do you convey that in groups? This is for my own selfish desire to know this, because I would love to facilitate larger and larger audiences myself. And I feel great in like small groups. So how do you facilitate safety in yourself first and foremost with a mass audience, and then in a group of hundreds of people? I know you've done a lot in person, and now you're holding space quite with larger groups online. So how do you do that? Like what's required in order for that to happen?
So I'll share a story with you, one of my initiations. I was teaching at Bali Spirit Festival, where I had every year while I was living in Bali. And I was assigned to a room that was just going to have about 200 people. And as I was walking towards the workshop space, I heard the floor had collapsed from the last workshop. So they were reassigning me to the main pavilion. And this was the closing workshop for the entire festival, and 500 people came. And I had only maybe 30 assistants because I was planning on a group for 200. So as you can imagine, I had an initial moment of apprehension, feeling, will I be enough? Will we have enough support? I mean, this is a lot of people. And when I got into that space and I turned on, I always have attunement music at the beginning, binaural theta waves going. The moment I put on that music I've listened to 1,000 times. At the beginning of every workshop, I often had this playing. My body remembered exactly what to do, because I had so many times come into a space, taken a breath, tasted the taste in my mouth, heard the sounds all in the space, seen the colors in the space. In case I'm like turning on my vagus nerve, and because when we get afraid, all of a sudden the vagus freezes up. So I'm turning my head. I'm looking at the clothes everybody's wearing. I'm noticing the color of the flags in the space, and I'm noticing the sensation of the fabric on my skin, and I'm feeling the temperature of the air as it goes in my mouth, and the saliva. So I notice when I come back to these things that are so present in the moment, and I deepen my breath, and I actually just start watching my breath. I watch the breath going in, I watch the breath going out, and I expand my vision, because another thing that can happen when we become fearful is this contraction of sight. So we actually are not seeing the full field. So softening the gaze a little bit and seeing everything. Like right now, I'm seeing the ocean behind this computer, and the palm trees are flying in the wind. And, this is resourcing ourselves. As a facilitator, you can resource yourself if you feel an activation coming. by doing these very simple somatic things. And having the anchor, I always have that anchor of that music instantly drops me into the presence. And the next thing that helps me feel safe is inviting, everybody in the space to do the same thing. So that's all. Whenever I do a workshop, the very first thing we all do is we gaze without words. We are all breathing, and I am speaking, and I'm guiding everyone through the exact thing I just did for myself. So before I even introduce her, she said, "Welcome, I'm Christabel. And before we begin, I want to invite you to behold everyone in this space." And my hand is on my heart. That is reassuring me and calming me. And this invitation, I'm saying, follow your breath, witness somebody, bless them with your eyes, really soften and witness someone else here. See if you can soften your heart to that other person you're looking at now. And so I'm talking them through this whole thing, and that's regulating me even more because I'm saying those things and it's regulating them, which again, in the heart field, in the collective heart field that we're creating, is helping me too. So by the time that's all done, it's no matter how many people are there, it's easy. And then the next piece for me is the prayer, because I am a prayer ninja. I love affirmative prayer. And this is a non-denominational affirmative way to remember our sovereign divinity, essentially, and to speak to the goodness and the wholeness and the purity inside us, and the eternal now that is happening, and the goodness in each moment. And so since this is something I do multiple times a day, or at least once a day for myself, and I do it in every single ceremony, that is a space I go into where the mind is soft and it's feeling the vastness of the universe. And so when I allow that emptiness and that receptivity, there's less space for the fear and the adrenaline that can creep in because of the amount of people in space. So I feel like it all comes down to us as facilitators. It all comes down to having the devotional practice to be a real priestess. And walking, living your life, and like you're in a temple, and you spend the time every day for the meditation, the prayer, the cleansing, the fasting. Water fasting is a huge part of my life. And doing whatever practices are the ones that help you regulate your nervous system and become more soft and loving and present with yourself. All these things will be serving you as you serve bigger groups of people.
Oh,
yeah.
Experiencing you do that as you walk me through this multidimensional weaving that you're so masterful at, and I'm allowing myself to be in the field of that experience when you were in Bali. And what a great example and story. Oh my goodness. So why is it important now? What about this now moment in history? Tell us about what you perceive as the ascension happening now on the planet, and why is it important for those of us, especially as women, mostly women in my audience, to really practice this sovereign way of being, and to share our gifts? What do you feel like is particular about this now moment that's important?
Well, there's only ever now. The now has been happening forever. And so in the now, each and every one of us, men and women, and every non-binary being on the planet, has an opportunity to awaken themselves so they can fully express the ultimate potential they have as a source of light, and as a channel of creativity, and as a loving presence and healing presence on the planet. This is a potential we each and every one of us have. We've been given and entrusted with certain gifts and capacities and talents that are yearning to be shared in greater ways to create more unity and connection and wholeness so that our entire species can have a quantum leap of evolution. And so there's an opportunity here for those who are called. Not everyone's called, but those who are know, they feel it in their hearts that there's something more, that I'm here for something bigger, that there's a mighty love in me that is yearning to be shared on a global scale, that there's something. And those are the people we're here to support, right? And each and every one of us has a secret soul message that only the mystery school of our individual life can elicit from us through our own initiations and trials. No one else has this same message or wisdom in the same way. Even if you meet someone who says, if you were to meet someone who says, yes, I'm here for sovereignty, but you're like, I'm here for sovereignty. The expressions of the empowerment you'll be each offering, it's impossible to replicate each other. And that's the encodement. And so I feel in this now moment, for those who are called, we have an opportunity to rise into excellence. And at least that's how I perceive it. For me, I feel the call, and how I respond to that call is, how can I master this vehicle that is a blip in space and time and an infinite eternity, and experience the maximum bliss from serving and awakening and touching the mind of source in this nanosecond of eternity that calls itself this vehicle of Christabel. And so I think we need this, obviously, because so many things are happening on the planet that are causing separation, and people are suffering, and they're afraid, and they're sick, and they're, we're living in times with a lot of polarity and a lot of separation. And I just want to love. I think most of us feel we want to create connection. And, this is a time because people are suffering, people are in pain, and people have their hearts broken. People feel stuck. They feel broke. They feel so many things. And we each have knowledge and wisdom. We have tools and skills we might not even know we have. And it's so important to share our resources. Just recently, I was going through a really challenging heartbreak myself. And what did I do? I called up a friend who is an incredible heart alchemist and was guided through some wonderful sessions that created coherence in me again, and he is following his mission in because of his train wrecks in his life around relating, and then devoting himself to reaching the highest level of excellence and wisdom in himself. And then he's serving others. And it's like, wow, what a gift for us each to transform the train wrecks into treasure for ourselves, and then to share it with others. So I don't see a need stopping anytime soon for us to each rise. It's about rising up and sharing what we're here to share.
Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
This piece about transmuting the pain and suffering into, this bliss that is always available to us in that I am place. Mm-hmm. I would love to hear anything about that, like for someone who is feeling despair, or you use the word broken. What is required for a remembrance of the wholeness that already is? In my experience, what are the, like, if there could be some, like a step, like an evolutionary step path. And I know the quantum, we can like fast forward very quickly. What do you see as the elements for someone who is feeling and experiencing pain to come to the other side of that, to return to their wholeness?
There's so many practices that I do around this, and I've been doing recently because of what I've been navigating. And I think one that I've been doing a lot recently has been an adapted Tonglen Buddhist meditation, but combining it with my own Christ light activation. And because the natural tendency for myself, if I am feeling pain and I am suffering and I'm afraid, my natural tendency is to suppress that and to judge that I'm even feeling that, because I grew up in a household where emotions weren't validated. They were diminished, and we were taught to control them and to suppress them. So it's taken a lifetime of therapy and work and stuff to really unlearn those habits, and yet they still recur. So the first thing that's so important for me is to simply allow the pain to be here and to welcome the pain and to say, thank you. Thank you for being with me. I was doing this last night at like 3 a.m. I couldn't sleep. I had the pain in my heart. I literally woke up and I just said, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I just held my heart. And, the next thing for me is really to get into a dialogue with it, is what I did last night. I said, what is this here to teach me? What can I learn? What do you need from me right now? And I just almost opened up and used my imagination to receive these messages from the pain and the part of me that there's so many parts. We each have so many parts. And, the part of me that I had projected outside of myself, this is the part I was working with and asking her, and basically building a greater relatedness to all the parts of me, the part of me that wants something that isn't there, right? The projection on the person of what I think it is really outside of me, but really it's a part of me. It's a version of me. So there's a lot of inner community work that I do in how can I be fully with this sensation I'm feeling in my body that's so uncomfortable that I want it to go away, and I hate this, and why do I have to feel this? And then how can I be with the part of me that wants to judge this, and how can I be with the part of me that thinks this is bad, that I'm even feeling this and I shouldn't be feeling this? And so it's like all of this love. And while I'm doing this, it's like the heart is growing brighter. So I'm seeing this sparkling golden God light in my heart growing vaster and vaster to really surround all these parts of me, the scared part of me, the lost part of me. And then, so once I'm doing all this sort of community love, there's an expanded state of enlightened presence that I perceive the ascendant masters have. The bodhisattva consciousness, right? And that's where the Tonglen piece comes in for me. So I sort of expand my perception out to the newest sphere around the earth, and all that activated field of ascended beings, the humans who have woken up across space and time, who transcended the ego and fear and actually felt the love of source in a pure, unconditional, omnipresent way. I touch that consciousness, and then I start breathing for all the other people on the planet who are feeling the same super uncomfortable emotion or feeling or pain or suffering, whatever it is. And then I breathe that into my heart, which is now glowing so bright with that Christed sparkling light. And then I welcome that. And there's something that happens for me when I start getting out of the me, and I start feeling that so many billions of people across space and time have felt the same discomfort that I'm feeling right now. I feel their suffering right now. I feel they're wishing there was help or somebody. And somehow when I'm using my pain or suffering, and I'm using it to feel more love and more compassion for other people. And it just, over the days that I do those practices, it seems to dissolve. the discomfort more.
Wow.
It's hard to talk about it versus to guide it, but I hope that came through.
Yeah, so beautifully. I was experiencing it, and I was also like, oh, this sounds like an amazing activation.
We've been doing these every week in Bliss Society, my Breathwork membership. This has been the theme of the whole month. And that's what I mean about facilitating, because all your people on this in this program with you are facilitators. The whole month's theme has been about transforming heartbreak into bliss, heartache into bliss, pain and suffering into light, presence. We can alchemize what is happening within our own lives and bring it to a state of resolution whereby we can then share it with other people in a way that empowers them. And I think that's really that's what an authentic facilitator is. It's somebody who's metabolized something to the point of overflowing grace, where they have a miracle they can share with another person.
Beautiful. Wow. Well, maybe we could do that now. Let's do that. Let's go into a process. Let's take about, I know we want to kind of close by the top of the hour, so maybe 8 to 10 minutes, and then I would love to dive into what you're working on now afterwards, after we're done with our process. How does that sound?
That sounds great. Let me take a look here. So we have a 5-minute or an 8-minute track. So maybe we'll go with
you want to do the 5-minute?
Yeah, let's do the 5-minute.
Okay, I'm going to remove my spotlight.
Okay. So all you beautiful goddesses, luminaries, I would love to invite you to relax your eyes closed. And if you want to remain sitting, you can do that. Or if you feel comfortable lying down for a moment and relaxing your body in a full lying down position, you can go deeper. And what we're going to do is a simple 5-minute experience of open mouth, connected breathing, breathing in through the open mouth all the way, expanding the belly, expanding the back, and exhaling all the way without a pause. So before we begin, let's take a few breaths this way, and then I'll be playing some music and I'll be speaking and inviting you to open your senses. So open your mouth. Stretch your jaw a little bit, make a sound. We're going to do 3 breaths just to see how it feels. So yeah. So as you're breathing that way, you may notice your mouth might become dry. That's okay. It will self-lubricate with time. And all you need to do is keep breathing. So go ahead and relax your eyes closed, closing your mouth now. Putting your hand on your heart, noticing how you feel. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes, take in the environment, and coming back into the presence.
Wow. 5 minutes can hold so much depth. I allowed myself to go into that space with you, and I just feel so profoundly grateful for the medicine that you bring and the light that you remind us of. And Tracy says that was beautiful. Yeah. That open breath experience was like me opening to all that is, dissolving what is between all that is and myself, which is all part of it. My experience of you, Christabel, and just everything you've shared here today is that you bring the experience of oneness into the field, like the experiential presencing of oneness through the alchemy that comes through the breath within and then pouring it out forward. That's my perception of what you're doing through the work that you do. That's so profoundly sacred and precious to me right now, just that we can have a real-time experience of that. Thank you.
It's good to be with you and everybody else who's with us.
Yeah. So, sister, how do we rise up into greater advocacy for our medicine and gifts? What are you offering right now? What do you feel inspired by and to share with us? How do we stay in your field?
Well, for starters, I have a free event next week on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday called 3 Steps to Create Your Signature Program. And it's for spiritual luminaries who might be overwhelmed with their creativity and self-doubts and feeling maybe not good enough or not ready or unsure where to start, and disorganized, who are longing for clarity and hand-holding and care from someone who has experience structuring curriculum and creating order out of chaos and blueprints for awakening. And so we meet 11 a.m. Pacific to 12 Pacific, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, April 25, 26, 27. And I would love to invite any of your sisters who feel called to come be with me in that container. And they can sign up at breathbliss.com/rise up. And I'm sure you will offer that link to them. And this is really a taste of the larger coaching work that I'm doing now with groups. For a while, I've been giving one-on-one signature program design consultations to mystics and priestesses and way showers, sound healers. I've helped people create hypnotherapy institutes, sound healing academies, so many incredible types of schools, intuitive, erotic, relating school. There's so many different beautiful expressions that people are sharing, like a cacao facilitator training and an inner alchemy training for trauma release. And I'm sitting with each of these beautiful beings and helping them get really, really clear about who their medicine is for and what is the full expression of their medicine. Because oftentimes we have a perception of what our soul medicine is, but the truth is it's much vaster, and there are many nuances to how it can serve even more people. So we go into great depth. And so this teaser experience where I'll be sharing is a taste of what I'll be offering in my 90-day program coming up. I'll be doing a 90-day immersion to create your spiritual signature program. And if your ladies are called, please come be with me. I feel the time is now. The medicine is so needed. We each have these codes and these life experiences we've navigated and these discoveries we've made through the mystery school of our own lives, and just the wisdom we've gathered through our own journey. And people need this now. And it's so much easier with support. I can't believe that I created all these academies by myself. I never had someone who made the way easier. I made so many mistakes and things took so much longer than they needed to. And it's so much easier with an updraft from and the support of someone who's experienced and has had success and touched the lives of thousands and tens of thousands and million people. And so, yeah, come play. Love to be with your beautiful beings.
Yay. I'll definitely add that into the replay as well. And will people be able to get on your list and stay in touch that way too?
Yeah, if people sign up there, then they'll also get on my list. And I probably will then they'll be getting emails for Breath of Bliss as well. So they'll learn
Great.
about the Breath of Bliss offerings, the membership. I have psychedelic audio downloads that are very multidimensional, and I'll give you your special link for that to share. And I have facilitator trainings. I think I'm moving back to Bali, and I'll be having some live trainings there coming up. So that's in the field. There's a lot of goodness happening now. So.
Beautiful, sister. Well, I
Mhm.
feel so just eternally grateful to be in union with you, for our friendship and just for the light that you bring to the planet at this time. And I
Mm.
just feel tender and open, and everything you offer is always so impeccable and very high level. And so I just am so excited for your upcoming experience. And I just like honor each of the women who are going to be able to interface with you through this going forward, and feel so delighted to be able to introduce you to my community. I know a lot of the sisters will want to stay in your field. So
Mm.
thank you so much. Is there any departing words or message or anything you want to leave us with as we close?
I love you.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Mm,
I love you.
yes.
We're here to
Let me
share love.
thank you. I just want to present some of the comments before we depart. Um, Earlier, Marissa had said she feels how we discover our gifts is through our greatest challenges. When we shift our feelings and perceptions around, we step into our power and choice. Aho.
Mm.
Tracy said that was beautiful, transcendence powerful. And Marissa said mahalo. And Tracy said, I resonate with your gentle spirit and grace. Thank you.
Mm.
Mm. Thank you so much, sisters. I look forward to weaving with you some more and further, and we will dive into a conversation about what Christabel presented today, and just sending a prayer out to all of you, wherever you are at, to just be gentle with yourselves, and please feel free to connect with Christabel and I further on any of the topics that we discussed today. Aloha, everyone.
Aloha.
Thank you. Thank you, Christabel. I love you.
I love you.